Hi, this is Chris Reddick with Chris Reddick Financial Planning. In this blog post, I talk about why you shouldn't worry about ISOs and AMT, right? Okay, so the idea here is what I write about is the alternative minimum tax. So what is that in a nutshell? What is that simply, right? You have your regular tax, which the vast majority of the population pays, and then when they calculate your regular tax in tax season, you also calculate the alternative minimum tax. And then what happens is if you have incentive stock options or ISOs, this goes into the calculation, and then you could owe, instead of your regular tax, you could owe AMT if that amount of tax is higher. Okay, so that's kind of simply what it is in a nutshell. And then the question is, why have AMT? Well, the idea is that you have these incentive stock options. So you work in a tech company, they incentivize you through these stock options, right? And they're vested over, could be quarterly over 4 years, right? They want to make sure you stay with the company, work hard, right? It's typically a private company, so it's not public. So the idea is that you benefit from the long-term growth. If the stock performs well in the future, it gets higher valuations and so forth, right? So that's the incentive. But the idea is that if you exercise these ISOs, so basically you purchase shares at a strike price that you were given, right? And then you don't sell them by the end of the tax year, okay? The IRS typically would not get any money, right? Any money from any growth until you actually sell it. And you could sell those ISOs 10, 20 years, whatever, into the future, right? So in order to make it a fair system, right, the IRS has the alternative minimum tax, where if you have this bargain element, right, difference between the fair market value and the strike price, and you don't sell it by the end of the calendar year, you could owe alternative minimum tax. So it's kind of trying to get that tax ahead of time. So that's the idea behind it. So it sounds really scary, but I'll talk about some rules of thumb in this blog post, which you really need to think about. So one thing is you want the bargain element, the difference between the exercise price and the fair market value, as low as possible, right? So if that's lower, then the chances of paying AMT will be less. So say the strike exercise price is $10, and then the fair market value is like $12. There's just a small bargain element, so you may be less likely to pay AMT if you don't sell it by the end of the calendar year. And a second thing is file the 83B form in 30 days. So that can be very beneficial because there may be no difference between the fair market value and the strike price. Okay, so then you would have no AMT, and then not keeping ISOs for 2 years from when they're granted and 1 year from exercise. So you got to make sure you use that 2 years from grant, 1 year from exercise to have that long-term capital gains, which is typically lower at 15% depending on your tax bracket. And then finally, not exercising ISOs up to the AMT crossover. So there's tons of calculators out there. You can figure out how many incentive you put in your gross income, and you can figure out how many ISOs you can exercise without triggering AMT. So that's kind of recommended as well, is try to exercise up to what's called the crossover. So these kind of rules of thumb. There's no perfect solution, right? Sometimes you just have to pay AMT. Sometimes you're lucky and you don't have to pay it. But as you go forward, there is a credit that you can get to recoup some of the tax that you pay up front. And the credit gets evaluated every year when you do your taxes, looking at the alternative and then your regular tax. All right, so that's kind of in a nutshell what this blog post talks about. So as I mentioned in this article, you shouldn't stress about it. There's no perfect solution. Really, the solution's up to you. You need to look at what your goals are, and perhaps talk to a financial planner, and then figure out if your goals align with your risk, and what different options you have, and you can do other things. Sometimes they have tender offers where another company would buy shares, or you can do cashless exercises as well. So all these opportunities out there that you should know about and try to take advantage of. All right, so that's it on this blog post. Hope you have a great day. Thank you.